What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Outside the Clutch. Today we're dressed up because we're talking to one of the industry's favorites, Mr. Troy. I'm going to shatter this last name. Schroeder. I want to say it's Schroeder. We're going to find out. He's nodding yes. It's Schroeder. I said it right. All right. Mr. Troy Schroeder from Best Dressed Balls. So I figured which way to commemorate this special episode. We're episode 39, man. Like that's a lot. What way to commemorate and like kind of give our love to him besides just doing the episode would be, hey, let's dress up. There might be some surprises in this one. We're gonna talk about a lot of different things tonight. He said I have free reign, so we're gonna throw some questions that you might not hear anywhere else. I'm pretty excited about it. You should be too. Jumping into this, we're monetized. I'm sure the chat, because it is Troy, is going to go a little bit crazier than usual for our shows tonight. So if you want to say anything and you want to make sure that you get seen, hey, drop us a super chat. I'll make sure it gets put out. All the money that we get from super chats, I will keep tally of, and I'll make sure that gets donated to USARK tonight, or when we get it, obviously, because it's not going to come straight to me tonight. But so let's jump into this, man. Like this is going to be a really good one. I want to say hi to the people that are jumping in here to support Troy, here to support the show. Will, you're back, man. Hey, I made you a mod. You better be ready to work tonight. Mindy, that's fam. How you doing? How you doing? Hope my baby boy's doing well. Been watching over him. Antoine, my dude. Kaiju constrictors. What is going on? The Monarch King. We're about to talk about that. Jerome, my dude, no limit. Eric's Morph Factory. What's going on? What's going on? Tom. That's the other half of Timeless Morphs. Gotta love them. Like I said, got a lot of love for my little dude. That's my little nephew over there going through some stuff, but he's making it. Max, Interstellar Reptiles. What's good, man? Andrew from Redwood. We need to give that man a lot of crap. He is not pushing his 15 minutes of lame. So give him some slack, give him some crap. Make sure he does some promotion before it ends. Who else we got in here? Madman Serpents. What's good? All right, we're going to jump into this. I said who I saw. We're going to jump into it. Hey, y'all, I hope you are ready to take your breeding. You're ready to take your collections. You're ready to take your passion to the next level. In order to do that, you have to do it right. In order to do it right, you have to provide proper husbandry. You know how I feel about husbandry. This is what the sponsors are all about. So without further ado, let's talk about them. Take care of your husbandry. Here at Outside the Clutch, we're honored to be sponsored by VivTech. Are you ready for innovation? Tired of the same boring product that's been used for 30 years? Ready to give your reptiles and amphibians the UV they really deserve? Then look no farther than VivTech. Their 3-watt LED bulbs provide the UV rays your animals have been missing. With 3 bulbs to fit your pet's climate needs, plus a dimmable feature, it's the only bulbs we use for UV. And it's the only bulb with a 2-year warranty in the industry. Plus now you can monitor all your pet's husbandry from your phone 24/7 with their sensors, and even ship your customers' animals in their custom bags. So what are you waiting for? Go to VivTechProducts.com today, use code FCLUTCH0322 for 15% off, and provide your animals the best care they've ever had. And man, you know how I feel about ReptiChip. I love the chip. It's raining chip. All about that chip life. Are you ready for the best coconut substrate in the game? Then you gotta get ReptiChip. First off, it's America's chip because it's veteran owned. Secondly, why wouldn't you want the best cocoa chip for your animals? Go to ReptiChip.com, use code FeelyChippin for 10% off up to 3 breeder blocks, or your entire order of Easy Hatch trays or any Redline Science equipment on the site. Limit 1 coupon per customer. Or reach out to me as a representative in the El Paso area, and don't forget to join the Reptilution, where all profits go to helping those in need within the reptile community. I'm going to regret doing that later. Finally, I want to talk about our last sponsor, Show Me Snake Shows. If you haven't caught one yet, hey, go check out a freaking Show Me Snake show. They're popping up all over the country. They're freaking great. I think Mickey's doing an outstanding job for what he's trying to do out there. Like, you got the big shows and you got the show where you really get that one-on-one time with the breeder. Not saying you can't get that at the big shows, but I'm saying these shows are freaking amazing. He's putting on like 2 to 3 shows a weekend, most weekends. So like, there's a way to find a Show Me Snake show near you. Go check them out. That's all I'm saying. Without further ado, like let's get into this. Let's get into this. Let's talk to the man, Mr. Troy Schroeder from Best Dressed Balls.
Hey.
What's going on, brother?
I feel like a giant ass hat that you're dressed up and I just wore a t-shirt.
I had to do it, man. Like I had to do it. I'm gonna tell you, the first time I ever met you was at Arlington NARBC, right? And I was like, this dude, like I didn't know what to think about you because you were just such a character. And you had I forget what coat you were wearing, to be honest. I want to say it was a sequin.
Oh yeah. Actually, now I think about it, it was like a silver sequined one. I think I remember that.
Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know what to say to him. I don't even know how to approach this dude.
Yeah.
And I was a little off put for a second. I'm not going to lie, but I'm glad we finally have had conversations, that we've had a chance to get to know each other. We have a lot of projects that are similar. But I think what it was when I saw you finally talk to someone at your table. I was just like, man, this is just a genuinely good dude. Like you could just feel the vibe coming off of you right away.
Yeah, man, I think keeping it, being real is a big part of, anything, right? It's not just at the shows, just being a genuine person. And, my backstory is a very big roller coaster in life. And I hope I've landed in the curve where I've realized being a genuine person is really who I'd want to be. And I would probably wear the coat every day, man. But I actually hate wearing like a coat in general. It's like 2 degrees outside right now, and I still wear a t-shirt throughout my day, right? And but I wish I could. And in the summer, right, it's hot as hell, and so I don't ever wear the coat. And so it's funny, but a lot of people here, even in my hometown, like they see me in it from time to time. We try to wear it whenever I'm, whether I'm doing a wedding or photo booths or something like that. And then obviously it fit with this side of things, and we can get into that story if you want to. So
yeah. So let's just kind of jump into it. There's a multitude of things that bring every person into this industry, right? So what was it that made Reptiles kind of come to you and become a part of your life? So such a big part of your life.
Yeah, I've probably told this story a time or two, somewhere, whether on a YouTube show or in person. And I don't want to drag it out by any means, but like growing up, my parents, they weren't necessarily big pet people. We didn't have a dog or a cat or anything. The only thing my parents ever let me have, I had a hamster. It got out, and had a hamster as a child. It got out, got caught in a heat vent, and I think my mom and dad found it or whatever. But they just weren't pet people. And so I turned 19, and about that time, I had met my wife, Lisa, and we started dating, and we had bought, I want to say, like 4 green iguanas from Earl May. I don't know if everybody knows what Earl May is, but it was a plant and garden center that had a pet department. And pretty quickly we started looking into are there reptile shows? Are there reptile pet stores? And we found Mark and Allie, who own AP Plastics. So if the rack side of things, that's who I get my racks from. But before they were rack people, they had a pet store and called Animal. Oh my God, I just forgot the name of it. Doesn't matter. Anyway, Lisa and I opened a pet store pretty quickly, and with a huge help from Mark and Allie. We ordered together and from our wholesalers, and I would drive from Fort Dodge down to Des Moines, Iowa, about an hour and a half, and pick up our stuff and drive it back. And so we had a pretty well full-fledged pet store. We didn't really carry dogs and cats per se. Like it did happen a couple times, but that was asking for trouble. We were really big into the reptile side of things and saltwater fish. That was kind of our two things. And we had our pet store from the time, probably I'm gonna say about 20 years old till our son was born. And so when he was born, man, this is kind of funny in a way. Like my mom and dad are the kind of people that you work for somebody, you collect a paycheck, you have insurance and things like that. And I'm just not built that way.
Right.
I've tried to work for people in my life. It just doesn't work out. I'm definitely built to work for myself. And so, but at the time, like my dad made a lot of sense. And so like literally the morning Michael was born, I slapped a note on the door that was like, we're closed for good. And I sold everything and got out of it and tried to get back into, corporate worlds and things like that. But it was always tugging at me. Lisa and I have always been pet people. And so, after Michael's born and we shut the pet store down, we ended up getting into like leopard geckos was kind of our next thing. And so we bred leopard geckos for a lot of time. We set up at our local shows. We met Joe and John from JSA and JD from JD Constrictions, Jim Stepflug, Brock, like a lot of those guys right in this area we met really quickly and forged some great friendships. And it kind of carried, into the snakes. Basically, I ended up buying a 1.2 and it was really kind of one of those things. And probably you hear people say this all the time.
What was it?
I thought it was gonna be a project for me and my kid, right? Like, oh, we'll keep the leopard geckos, but me and Michael can have these snakes, and Michael could set up at the table with us, and Michael could sell the babies, and that sparked into me taking into snakes quickly. We got on the leopard geckos very quickly and jumped into the ball pythons. So that's kind of a long and short story of how we got to where we currently are.
That's insane, man. Like to go from a pet store to corporate America again, and then just start it back up from, okay, I just need pets around and a hobby. That's Jesus.
Yeah. It's been interesting. I would actually open a pet store right now if it wasn't such a challenge. Owning a pet store, a mom and pop pet store, for one, you're competing against big box stores, you're competing against Amazon and things like that. But even just the fact that it's hard to find good help, you're trusting. These are live animals, right? Like you have to have somebody that's willing to not miss a day and feeding and cleaning and stuff like that. And that really weighed on us too when we had our pet store. We never really could take time off ourselves. And we did find a guy who was a good friend of mine. His name was Jason. He helped us out a lot, but this has been 20 some years now and ago that this we had our pet store, and I would still do it today if you could have the right people involved.
100%. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people in this market kind of take for granted is brick and mortar isn't for everybody. And the fact that we're able to do so much as an e-commerce store from your home or a facility or however you decide to do it,
right,
a lot different. But man, that's there's a full swing back. That's crazy. What was the 1.2 that you got when
I ended up with a G stripe that was het albino and 2 double hets.
Dang, so you started hard right away. Like you saw the future that this is where it was going right away.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Like I don't want to say quickly, but I got away from the G stripe side of things because I had such a hard time selling them. And then it was like right away, like I found out the next show, like people were like, hey, do you have any more G stripes? I'm like, oh no, like I got rid of all of them or whatever. And so I think very quickly we got thrown into like somewhat of that roller coaster curve of how to sell and what to breed and so on. I wish I had a lot of the G stripe stuff I had back then but your collection changes a lot, and again, we might get into that as well.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna talk. It's funny that G stripe was the first thing you got back into.
Yeah.
So I think I've said this before. I may not have. I don't know. I only have one snake that I've ever had remorse over getting rid of, right? And it's like right after I got out of the army, I had to wait for my money to come in from being medically retired, and I was just like, crap, I got to do something. And it was already breeder size. Like I should have just had the mind all to just feed it, breed it, and get the babies, right? But impatience and lack of knowledge and whatever you want to put it up to at this point. I had a lavender 100% het G stripe female and I had a G stripe male. And I could have just bred them, but I let the female go to a guy who's making like, or was making crazy stuff like 2 years, 3 years after that. And I think he's gone. I think he sold out. I have no idea where that snake went. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'd bring it back. It's just crazy stuff like that, man. Like
Oh
it's,
yeah.
and like G stripe, I didn't like it, but I was like, that's a recessive this is gonna sound bad. I was like, I didn't like it per se, just for the G stripe, but like the things that it did within combos, I enjoyed, right? But I was like, okay, let me get as many recessives as I can, because when I did my research, it was like, hey, you want to collect as many recessives as possible. Granted, this is like 5 years ago when it was like we're just hitting one recessive, we're thinking about two. Like all the craze wasn't there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, this was 10 years ago for me. Or just really close. I just saw a Facebook post in my Facebook memories of my first clutch, and I think if I remember, it was either 8 or 9 years ago. And so yeah, man, G stripe stuff at the time, like it was appealing to me, like eye pleasing or whatever you want to say. But I had a really hard time selling a lot of it, and so the salesman in me was like, oh, I need to go to a different project, or I need to overhaul the collection already because this stuff's not selling. In hindsight, I think I wish I would have kept a lot of that stuff. I would be years ahead, like if you think about like clown G stripes and things like that, like, geez, I could have been, just absolutely ahead of things. But I think anybody's been in those shoes, right? Like I had hypo clowns that I remember buying for a couple $100 because people were just dumping it. I remember getting rid of all of my clowns about 4 years into it because same thing, like it just kind of was like, oh, blah, it's this, brown beigeish looking snake or whatever. Nobody really cared about it. And then all of a sudden it was like the very next season, people were like, oh, look what clown does with this. And I'm like, oh, I just sold all that stuff. And so, man, I took a really hard learning lessons, I probably would say in the first, 3, 4, and 5 years. Like I learned a lot quickly on what I should have been keeping and what I shouldn't have been. And so we overhauled the collection the very first time, about probably my third or fourth year in, and then about my seventh year, we did it again. And to be honest, I think you have to. I think you have to take a hard look at your collection every few years. And I don't want to say the word dump, but you need to move away from some stuff and bring in, something different, and to keep the collection and yourself, I think, motivated. Like, I think it gets a little repetitive if you just keep the same collection growing and growing and you don't ever bring anything new in. So, yeah.
100%. Yeah, I get that. Let's kind of talk about one of the other things. So you recently celebrated an anniversary, and it's a huge milestone for you. I'm very proud of you. I actually, one of my buddies said that that's what brought him to snakes. So he used to gamble really bad. He used to buy storage lockers because he needed his gambling fix.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now breeding snakes and having to play the odds with snakes is his gambling fix so
Yep.
that he doesn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, really kind of the same for me. Yeah, yesterday I celebrated getting my 7-year Gamblers Anonymous token, chip, whatever you want to call them. And that's been quite a journey. I'm adopted, and long and short there, like I grew up very angry and very upset that my mom I didn't understand it. The way I looked at it growing up is my mom had given me away, and and obviously in hindsight, it was for the better. My life is a much better, version than it could have been. And by the time I was very angry. And so, by my teenage years and by my 20s and even into my 30s, man, I was just very angry, very depressed. And so I masked, or I self-soothed, or whatever you want to say, as far as, self-medicated, and gambling was something I turned to. And I was a big poker. I loved playing poker, and being at a poker table, man. It just, everything disappeared for me, and I didn't have any problems. It was just me and a pot and a guy at a hand, or whatever you want to say, and it came to the point for me where it made me feel so good to not have to think about life and my, whether the studio was doing good, or whether Lisa was happy, or my problems with my biological side, and my own inner, fight. It all, it just went away at the poker table.
So
And
this is, I'm sorry, I didn't
no,
mean to
no, go
interrupt.
ahead. You're good.
Is
You're good.
this corporate America timeframe, or is this after
Um,
your child and trying to
no,
set
so
up
this,
2 different businesses essentially?
yes. So the last 7 years, so to give you kind of where I'm at, 15 years ago, I got out of working, kind of the corporate world. I was, had sold buildings. I built an office for a company that sold like large metal, buildings. And then I also ended up working like selling cars, like, and this all kind of came in a couple year time frame. And then 15 years ago, I got away from it all, and I started the studio. So I'm at my photography studio tonight. And about 7 years ago is when, obviously, like, is when I stopped gambling, and I was gambling probably 5 years before that, probably 4 to 5 years. I got in it pretty deep. And
What's
then,
what's I don't want to say what's pretty deep, but like what's one of the hardest like what was one of your worst nights, if you're willing to divulge that?
yeah, I mean, when you lose, 3, 4, 5 grand in a hand,
Oh,
you're having a bad night. And that's not the pot size, that's the money you put in, right?
right,
So like,
right.
there's well over, probably 20, 15 grand, 20 grand or something in this pot. And you throw 5 grand of your own money in, and guys are getting out in your last hand. The problem was I was playing with guys that had more money than me, big farmers, real big farmers, so millionaires, and they would call your river card for, you could put every dollar you had in your bank account at the river, right? And they would still call for that 1% chance, and they'd hit it.
Wow.
And so for me, it was never necessarily about the money. Me and Lisa never had any financial issue over it.
Right.
I just became angry. I would come home and I wouldn't want to go to the studio. I didn't want to work, because I was analyzing hands that I went through the night before, or the 2 nights before, and I couldn't get over it. I couldn't let it go. And so, basically the last night that I played was one of those nights, man, where I think I lost, like, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 grand, I think, that night, if I remember right. I started at 5 p.m. and I think right around 5:30 a.m. I called my mom and dad and told them I needed help. And they woke up, and I drove right to their house. And we called my wife Lisa, and she came over, and we sat down, and I explained what had been going on, and how long it had been going on, and how it turned from fun with the guys to me making really good money, and then losing really good money, to just more anger. I was even more angry and more depressed, now playing cards, which took my depression away at one point. And so, yeah, man, I have a good support system, man. My mom and dad are super awesome, and my wife, like, super forgiving, and always has my back. And so between the three of them, and then I have a really good friend, Jen Hillingay. She's a fellow photographer. We met quite some time ago, and she's just been an unbelievable friend to me. And so between the four of them, like, they really pushed it, me getting into a program, and always having an outlet to have somebody to talk to. And so, yeah, man, 7 years has gone by pretty fast, gambling free, and I feel good, man. I'm in a good spot.
It's freaking awesome. I'm glad to hear it, man. I'm glad to see it. There's a lot of people that They let their addictions overtake them, but you turned it into something positive, both for you and your family, which is huge.
Yeah, man, just last night after writing that post, I heard from a friend of mine, and she had just lost her brother the week before to alcohol and prescription pills, man. And it's tough when you hear somebody that's dealing with addiction that just can't find their way through it, and there's so many, like it's my best friend in life. We've been friends since we were 5, has been addicted to meth and things. He's been in and out of prison. He currently lives in his car down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We talk from time to time, but his life will be short. And we're 44. He and I are the same age, and I'll get that phone call someday, man, and his addiction will have won. And it's very tough to swallow, man. It's tough to see people go through that, men especially, and I think you'll understand this, John, is military men, like so many people. You look at the lives that are lost, that coming back from wars and things like that, man, because men don't process things the way that, not to say that women don't have, the same issues, but I love you too, Jacob. Thank you, man. But I look at, talking to people, whether it's addiction to drugs or alcohol or gambling. A lot of those guys come from the military, man, and it's they're trying to mask something that's much deeper, and it's a lot of trauma. And unfortunately, as men, man, we just bottle things up, and we think that we're not supposed to talk about it, and we were raised that way. And I think a lot of people talk about how soft men are becoming, and I think that's probably some truth to that. I hope there's a fine middle ground where men at least find a way to talk about their problems than finding their way into addictions and trying to drown them with that, right? I that's my hope for the world. Is I certainly hope that there's a day where addictions are easily beat.
100%. I think it's a twofold thing, man. Obviously, when we have that free time and we're fighting our inner demons, they tend to win, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that we've really brought up, and the veterans that I talk to, is find a way to keep yourself busy. Find a way to essentially take up all that free time where you would be stewing over what happened to you, or you'd be essentially fighting, right? And
Right.
that's what saves a lot of people. Like when I first got out, I had extremely bad PTSD, and the snake saved me. My wife saved me. She kind of forced me to relook at things. I was going down a really bad path. So I wouldn't say that I was an alcoholic, but I turned to alcohol to kind of numb me enough to where I didn't care whatever happened, right?
Right.
And then because of that, dark things came up,
Yeah.
and I became like more physical, not towards like family or things like that, but like other people around me, and like I would push people away, and it's a long journey. It's something I still
Absolutely.
fight with sometimes today, obviously, but
Yeah, man,
uh,
and I still fight today too, man. I still
hey,
fight
man,
the depression. I'm in a Instagram group with a bunch of snake guys. That they're my fellow friends, and I reached out to them one day and told them like, hey, man, I'm just not myself, and I was having a really hard time, and like they all reached out to me one way or another, and we talked about different things, and I ended up going back to my doctor and trying to. I've always been a big advocate. I don't want to say that necessarily. I'm not a fan of taking medication.
I
I
agree.
took so much of it as a child to help me that it left a really bad stain, I think, in my mind as far as how I look at it. But I am on medication now, and we were talking about like testosterone levels and things like that, and there's so much to your body that's your gut health. I have horrible gut health, man. I don't eat well. I have irritable bowel syndrome. I'm telling you guys, this is probably too much information. But yeah, man, there's just so much that goes along with how your brain thinks and chemical imbalances and things like that, man. And we're all different. Nobody's the same. Nobody's walking the same set of shoes, man, and everybody's battle is different. And, I think, last night I wrote my post, man, that you got to show people grace, right? You got to show people love and understanding. And it's sometimes that's tough, you know, when you see people, you know, fighting their addiction, and they're fighting you, and you think that they're putting the addiction before you, but really they just don't know how to like go over that wall and accept your help. And it's almost easier to fall back on an addiction. And so it's tough, man. It definitely gets a hold of people. And you know, I'm happy that, you know, you're in a better place, man. That's great. And you know, sometimes I think my biggest, I'm not a military man. My dad was, you know, I have a big respect. I get to go on an honor flight a couple times a year where we take veterans out to DC and show them the monuments and spend a day. And so my first flight still had guys from World War II on there, which was really interesting. We went through the Korean War, and we're into the Vietnam guys, and then we went into the Korean War guys. And it's, you know, I've learned so much from them, and to see them, you know, break down and have a moment years, you know, later, man, like they've carried so much pain, and sometimes you can see you know, that lift off of their shoulders, you know, coming to these things. And so, you know, I applaud guys like you, man. I have a big, deep respect for people in the military, and it saddens me that they come home to a country that somewhat forgets, you know, what they went through, and doesn't give them the proper care to you know, get through those things.
Well, I mean, we signed up for it. We're obviously we're masochists, so worst way to say it, but
you signed up for it.
It's funny that you said the testosterone thing too, and it's a study that I've been reading. I'll have to find it and I'll post it here soon. But I was listening to Joe Rogan and someone else about it, and it made me dive into it. So an addiction, when you get an addiction, your mind goes in, and essentially the same chemical process happens in your brain with an addiction, and when you're withheld from that, as when you go into fight and flight.
Oh, sure.
So there's a lot of, like, they're reading brain scans of people that are going through addiction withdrawals, and people that have like dealt with combat and other stuff, and like the way their brains are interacting. They're doing scans on this, and they're finding that they're very, very similar. So
yeah,
the testosterone and all your hormones really do play a huge part of it. So that's
and
I like you jumped into this way deeper than I thought we were gonna do today.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm an open book, man, and I live my life that way. And I know we talked briefly before this started, but yeah, man, I have no fear to talk about, you know, the deepest and the darkest, or the greatest moments, right? And I think we're meant to help one another. I love human connectivity, and I think that I really just hated people, you know, growing up. I mean, I had a lot of great friends and things like that, but I just, you know, behind that, you know, fake wall or whatever, man, I just hated people. And that's changed for me a lot. And you know, I really believe in the human, you know, connectivity between people, and I believe we're here for a purpose. And I think that purpose is, you know, to help one another, and to, you know, applaud one another and push one another. And I think that should be, you know, all around positivity as much as it can. Certainly, don't get me wrong, man. I have enemies, and I'm a human, and I'm a sinner, and you know, I'm certainly not perfect by any means, man. But I really try to put the, you know, foot forward when I can. And yeah,
brother, I love it. I love it. So let's kind of jump into another. This is gonna cause controversy. I already know it. I know it's coming up. Everyone says it. Like, everyone's saying it everywhere you look. The snake market is crashing.
Yeah, man.
What's your take on the market, Troy?
You know, I don't know if I could put it into words, so I may ramble for a minute. I think our market isn't necessarily affected by normalized everyday market, right? Like, ours is very niche. There's only a certain amount of people that, you know, are diving into reptiles and things like that. It's not, you know, it's not like everybody loves it. It's not like everybody has to buy a car. everybody has to rent a house or buy a house. Everybody has to buy clothes. So like the everyday things that can be affected, I think, in what a recession. I don't necessarily think that ours is affected the same way. Obviously, people's money tightens up and whatnot, and so you may see a dip in your sales. And so, but I'm not going to say that there's like a snake market recession. I just don't believe that. I think you may have to get creative in how you breed things. I think you may have to get creative in advertising and getting yourself out there and still trying to push, forward. And the sales might be harder to achieve. But if you just sit, I think the problem is people hear that, and I think they sit back and go, well, I'll just wait till that ends, and then hopefully my snakes will sell again. And I think that's just it's a bad attitude. It's a bad way to look at it. I think you just have to push through it. People are going to have to tighten their money up. That's probably where we're at as a country. Will they have less money to buy snakes and stuff? Sure. Do you need to adjust maybe your prices and stuff? Sure. That's anything. I just don't think it's like come to a halt. So many people are like, oh, I'm not selling anything, and I'm like, I have a hard time believing that. If you are that person, I think you just need to change your attitude. I think you need to find a way to market yourself. And so I'm not gonna tell you that we're in a snake recession. Maybe that's my answer.
Troy's saying it nice. I like it. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say what I fully believe, and I might get some hate from this. And I'm in full agreement with Beast Morphs. That's why I popped that comment up there. But I think a lot of people came in the last, I'll even say 5 years since I've come in, right? And while times were a little slow in 18 for some people, they really weren't bad. In fact, for the last 5 years, you could pretty much throw any level animal on a table on MORPHMARKET and really not work that hard to move it. The difference is, like Troy said, funds for everything are coming a little bit tighter right now, right? So those people that aren't used to having to market themselves, aren't used to having to work for their dollar, aren't used to having to be a salesman or saleswoman, hey, you got to actually work now to make your money. I'm sorry, you're not going to just unload 30, 50, 100 snakes
right
by just posting them now. You have to actually do something in order to find someone to want your animals.
Yeah. And John, if I can add this too, man, I also think if you look, I have my data, right? And I think if you people really keep decent data, if I look at my 2019 sales, they're not all that much different than my current 2022 sales. Yeah, I had a really good 20 and 21 during COVID and things like that. And people were maybe getting a little bit of extra money from the government, or maybe whatever was going on. People were at home. They had whatever went on, right? I think a lot of people saw a big spike in their sales in 20 and 21. I think what we're seeing is just getting back to a norm. And so if our country is truly in a recession, I'm not an economist or anything. I'm not that smart, man. I'm not political, blah, blah. But if that's the fact, if we're truly in a recession as a country looks at it, I think the snake sales are just getting to a point where we're back to where we were in 2018, 2019 and pre-COVID. And so to me, then that just means we're normal again, right? Like the curve has flattened out. And so if people want to put a negative tone to that, I guess that's their choice, man. I just choose not to.
No, absolutely. I don't think we should be negative. I'm simply saying, if you want to move your animals, freaking do the work. Like, quit complaining about it and just do the work. It's just work.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be really honest. There was times in 20 and 21, man, where like snakes were selling so fast that I don't think I had to answer MORPHMARKET inquiries quite as quickly or quite as, I don't know, kindly. Like back then, somebody just wrote me a $700 question mark. I could basically give them an FU, right? Like, I'm not going to take my time with you. Now, like, if I get that, like, I'll at least try to start a conversation, right? Because something has changed, right? Or we went back to a norm. And so I think you just have to be able to roll with the punches. You know, I think that's whether you're selling snakes or cards or baseball cards or you know, jewelry, whatever. Like things change, and I think you have to be able to roll with it to keep, you know, somewhat of a normalcy to your sales.
And I think one of the other things, and someone, I didn't see it in the comments, but I talked to someone about this, and you brought up the fact that you're kind of seeing similar sales, right? So there's a couple of things that go in with that too. Is it's your longevity in the business, right? It's the fact that people are constantly seeing you, people constantly have you in their face. They know your name, they know your attitude, who you are as a person. All these things come into effect. The fact that you've essentially gone through your entire collection probably multiple times at this point and changed it out. You're always creating new stuff. You're not making the exact same pairings 3, 4, 5 years
Right.
in a row.
Yeah.
Like, come on, people. Like, as you grow, everything grows with you. The big thing is just do the work, put the time in, quit expecting that easy handout, because it's not coming anymore.
Yeah, I think right now, man, my biggest, I don't know, problem, I guess I'll call it that. My biggest problem is just trying to decide what I'm going to pair. My pairing plans the last couple of years, like, just seemed like it flew, like it just kind of clicked. And now I'm like, I don't want to waste a pairing. I saw Jacob make a comment about like high-end stuff. High-end stuff is still selling, I think, really well. So like, you know, obviously, yeah, do I want to try to push for that and just cut out, you know, the low end or even some of the mid end? And there's a place and time for that, you know. And so it's tough to decide. I think that's where I'm at right now as a breeder. Like, I normally have my breeding plans done by this time. I don't. I'm still kind of going back and forth on you know, what I want to do. So, you know, I think that's something you can take away from this is take a step back, like, and really look at your you know, your breeding plans. I'm catching these comments over here from the side from Redwood, and I can only,
dude, Andrew's killing it on super chats tonight.
Right. Yeah, I did see that he said something about voting for him.
He's finally halfway through the freaking contest. Andrew's finally promoting himself for 15 minutes of lame. It's about time.
Yeah, and to, you know, his current comment, yeah, you know, here's the thing. You got guys like Bob Boo, right? Like me and Bob and Josh and JSA and Justin and JD, like, we're all set up near each other at a lot of these shows. We all talk. We're all very honest about our numbers. And, you know, when I walk away from the show and, you know, you do $5,000 or 10 grand or 20 grand, and then you turn around, the next person looks at you and says, "Oh, we're in a snake recession," and, you know, I'm holding this money, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, people are still buying stuff, and I am too, right? Like, I just spent a chunk of money in the last couple of weeks on bringing in some you know, new blood from people, and you have to go forward, man. You can't just stop on the line. You still have to take the step. And I think people get scared, and there are things I'm scared of. I mean, obviously I pull income from this. We have the studio as well. And then we have a rat business, so we supply mostly ourselves, but we do sell to some local people, and then I supply rats to John Dagg. I'm guessing I can say that. And so, yeah, man, I think you know, it's just slowing down and making the right choices and buying the right snakes that fit your collection and making the right breeding plan. And I wouldn't worry about the recession talk stuff, man. This is only going to bring you down. Just avoid it the best you can and make the right plans for yourself and move forward.
I agree. I think we, as much as this is a heated discussion, it's something that we talk about here locally quite often. There's people constantly shifting what they think about it, obviously, but it's just, the thing is, it's gonna be what it is.
Yeah.
And the only way to get through it, one way or the other, is to put your head to the grindstone and freaking keep going.
Yeah.
Either that or give up and give more room for the rest of us. I mean, I don't want to see it.
Right.
I don't want to see anyone step away, but
yeah, I don't want to see people fail either.
Don't do it.
Right. You know, in that same group of guys I was kind of talking about earlier, like, I came to them one time not all that long ago, and I'm like, what do you guys think? Like, is this happening? Like, I want your guys' input, and like, DG clowns and blah, blah, blah. And I went on, and we had a really good conversation. And at the end of it, we all kind of agree, like Andrew's in that group, and a handful of guys, and we all, really try to, I think, push each other forward. And, but yeah, I mean, I guess I'd be lying if I said I don't get somewhat concerned. I just don't swim in it. I think I do for a day. And then it's, hey man, get your shit together. Like, I think we're all that way. And if you're caught swimming in circles, you gotta stop, and climb out of that crap and move forward. So
100%, 100%. So one of the best ways to get started anywhere, and even to pull yourself out of that, like you've said, you have a group that talks to you. You guys kind of mentor each other. So who's some of the people that brought you up in this industry and helped you become successful, and people that you keep around you now to help you continue that success, and maybe some of the people that are kind of learning from you as a mentor at this point? And what
yeah, I mean,
what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think for me, the guys that got me started, the first two guys that really got me started, would be Jimmy Stepflug and probably Brock Wagner. Those are probably the first two guys that I really got to spend a lot of time talking to. From there, I think the friendships that you really end up hanging out with and stuff. Obviously, you guys see me at shows with Joe and John from JSA. And JD, I would say the three of us, or the four of us technically, they're kind of my frontline people, right? Like, they're my everyday people. But some of the guys that have came part of that circle for us, Zach Schroeder, Andrew, Jerome, Antoine, Jacob, Bob and Josh, Kendall, all those guys. Like, we have a good group of dudes that really push each other forward, and I think there's probably things they learn from me. And I think there's a lot that I learned from them, and it doesn't matter where we are in that level, right? Like, if I'm technically years ahead of, X person, I still learn from that person, and I hope they're learning something from me. And, guys like Will at RCR, like, man, that guy is a wealth of information, and has certainly helped me out, multiple times. And, but all those guys I listed, there's so many, that's the problem is, I could probably spend an hour just listing the people in this industry that have helped me. Justin and Chase, like, man, I was one of those guys that thought, I put Justin on a pedestal and thought, he doesn't talk to us little guys, blah, blah. I had called his cell phone one time and he picked up, and I was like shocked, and I think he and I have a unique relationship. He lets me really pick on him a lot, and he doesn't hate me, I think. Chase and I have become really good friends. My wife and I have went down and stayed with Chase and Abby and spent the weekend, and really forged a great friendship together. And so, that's the thing, is this industry has brought me to people that have become my everyday friends, whether we talk about snakes or not. They've become, part of my family. And to me, that's really the most important thing. And you might catch me at a show and I might be bitching for a minute that, sales are slow or this or that. But more than likely, if you stick around the conversation, you'll hear me say, like, it's more about the relationships and marketing and the networking part of it. And really, when I walk out of a show and I've met somebody new and, they continue to call or text or whatever, like, that means a lot more to me than the sales aspect of it. I really enjoy the people. And so I hope I'm not missing anybody or feel like I should have called somebody out. Dave Hardy and Chad and oh man, Max from Interstellar, like, so many people, Kayla and Max. I mean, there's just so many people that I've met, and we either have an everyday friendship or we certainly get to talk and conversate, and it's always positive, and everybody's willing to help each other, and I'm very thankful for that.
That's awesome. I think it's one of the most important things, man, is really the group of people that is either going to raise you up or bring you down. And I say it a lot because it's true. It's because when you're having, like you said, when you're having that rough moment, whether it's at a show or wherever it is, right? Even my second season, which technically I'm only going into like my third season breeding, but my second season, I was just like, I was super frustrated because I wasn't seeing sign. And I called my mentor and I was just like, man, F this. And
Yeah.
I can't deal with this. I like, it's too much stress. And then he said, well, hold on a second. What are you doing? What are you seeing? Just breathe. Obviously, if you're getting this worked up over the fact that you're not seeing your results, you actually give a shit about it, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk it out. And you calm down, you start saying, and he's like, you're right there. Just do this. You're
Yeah,
fine.
and I would be, I'd like to mention, like even Ozzy, again, I pedestaled him, and he was another guy that I reached out to, and he bought a snake for me, and I was like shocked.
How's that feel, bro?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty funny story. Like, I believe like in writing goals down, and I'm not good at it all the time, but that particular year, I wrote down that I wanted to sell a snake to Justin, and I wanted to sell a snake to Ozzy, and I wanted to sell a snake to Miguel, and I sold all of them a snake within about a month of each other. I thought it was pretty funny, man. It was really neat for me, and but what I found out, man, is those guys are just everyday guys. They're not, these people that, it's not that they don't deserve to be put on a pedestal, because they do. They worked very hard or whatnot, right? Like they've they put a lot of time into what you're doing here, right? YouTube or this or that, and so they've built a big following, and so people put them, I think, at the top, and they are at the top. But they didn't treat me that way. They treated me like a person, and so I have to say, man, like I really enjoyed going through that process with those guys. And I've talked to Ozzy before on the phone and been like, hey man, like tell me what I'm doing wrong. Joe and John and JD and Justin, I mean, all those guys have heard me go through a night where I just, you want to give up. It's let's go, and this, yeah, you're there to talk
It's human nature.
Yeah, yes, yeah, nature. Absolutely. Hey, quick shout out to my friend Anna. I love me some Anna. So I see she's in the comments.
She is actually the reason I vended Arlington this year.
Oh, neat. Okay.
So yeah. I made a smart ass comment, and I was like, man, because she was like, hey, are you gonna vend? Because I always see you there. I was like, no, I don't have a table, but if one were to open up, I will vend it. And I shit you not, 2 days after I say this to her, Tony from Hardwire puts out, hey, I'm letting 2 tables open.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And she messages me first thing in the morning. She's like, hey, remember when you said this? Well, here's your opportunity.
Yeah. Well, the best thing about Anna is, I don't know if Anna has the time to be friends with everybody. But if you could have a friend like Anna, she'll call your bullshit, right? And I think you need that person in your life, right? And I think I have a few Annas that aren't afraid to call my bullshit. And so, but that's one thing I admire about her, is she keeps it very real, and she's not afraid to call it. And so she's good stuff. So hi, Anna.
One of my favorites. All right, let's jump into hopefully what everyone's here to. We're gonna jump into the projects. Everyone wants to know what's going to be the new trend for Troy.
Yeah.
What are we willing to divulge? I'll say it that way.
Yeah, I don't really have any secrets when it comes to projects and stuff. Like, and here's I'll tell you why. Like, I would rather people know, because I feel like if they know, I think maybe they'll in turn give me info that would only help me take those projects further, right? So for me, it's not about keeping, secrets and stuff. So I think right now, man, I'm obviously pushing the Monarch side of things. It's something I dove into. I actually hated it. I thought Monarch and Ultra Male and that stuff was stupid. I ended up with a Monarch animal, and I was like, this is kind of like leaning on me. I'm kind of liking it. And I decided to dive in, and I've really enjoyed it. And you get people that are very team Ultra Male and team Monarch. I enjoy them both, and but I decided to invest my money into Monarch when I did. And if people were to ask me why, I really can't give you a why, right? Like, it just was a visual thing in front of me at the time. I do see animals that look very similar, you know, in ultramale and monarch, and I see very big differences between ultramale and monarch. And I think it really just comes down to the fact of like what you like, and monarch was that for me. And so I'm going to continue that. You know, I've got, I think I've got one more clutch in the incubator. You know, we hit the Monarch Pied this year. I was really excited about that. I bought a Fire Monarch Pied from the UK. I ended up with some double het girls that came from Liz and Kyle from KE Royals. And I was really worried because there was a lot of speculation about like, are these different bloodlines or something? Like I was really kind of nervous, but you know, my Fire Monarch Pied came from the UK. Those animals that Liz created came from animals made by Tom. And so when I hatched a Monarch Pied, man, I was pretty happy that, you know, it just all proved out and whatnot. And so it's been a fun journny, man. I think I've got some fun stuff. Just hit a bunch of Monarch combos that are 100% het pied. You know, going into next year, it's something I'm still working on. I've got some some triples that hopefully maybe I get lucky on. So be Monarch clown pied. Have a clutch of or a chance from double het to double het from black pastel hypo monarch. You know, so if I got really lucky, I would love to see what that looks like, but I got to get pretty lucky. I think I only have like 3 eggs, so I got to get really lucky. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of, you know, Monarch is definitely on top of my list. I love Mandarin. I'm sure you've all heard me talk about Mandarin. I think it's a phenomenal thing. I think there's some controversy with it. If you want to get caught up in that, that's, you know, on you. But like, I think you find it from the right person. You can see Justin's, you know, he just posted the other day that he picked up some more of it from the UK. TJ, who I forgot to mention TJ earlier, and I'm not going to mention TJ's like business name because I will completely butcher it. But it's you can put, I don't know, I'll put a link up to TJ or something. God, I hate myself. But TJ has been an absolute phenomenal friend to me, and you know, we hit it off. You know, it's funny. I bought my Monarch from him, and I almost felt like I was like, who is this guy? Like, I was worried because wasn't buying a lot from people I just didn't know. And so I took a chance on this TJ, and TJ turned out to be like definitely a needle in the haystack. You know, like he's been absolutely phenomenal to me, and he's a big supporter of the Mandarin stuff, and he's done phenomenal stuff with it. I think the Super Mandarins are crazy. I know Andrew is working Mandarin as well, you know, me and Justin, and there's a handful of people out there. So, you know, that's something, get it from the right people. That's what I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to get into the drama of it, but buy it from the right people. So
you seem to pick projects where there is a little bit of drama behind each project. Like the Monarch, you have the Team Monarch, Team Ultramel. Obviously, you have the Burgundy line that came from the UK, but once it comes over, sometimes they call it Monarch, or they're like, hey, this is the actual, like, obviously it's the same thing, but it was the way it was. Some people line bred it over there, so it came out a little bit darker.
I was really worried about that, man, but yeah, like I said, it worked out.
And I think both ways it's gorgeous. It's just like you said, it's really what appeals to you. You chose Monarch because of the way that it portrays its color. What
I got into like Hurricane, man, when it was like really at its controversial point of like being, whether it's trick or blitz. And I was like,
well,
I almost felt like I don't know how I got into these things the way I did. Like, because I didn't hear it, but once you own it, it's kind of like when you buy a car. You don't ever see that car, but then when you buy it, it's like you see 100 of them that first day, and you're like, oh, I don't have the unique one, right? Like, so yeah, but I've definitely found my fair share of animals or projects that have a lot of controversy that follow them.
Man, that's I just got into Hurricane, and it wasn't on purpose. And I'm not gonna lie, like, this is within like the last, what are we in? We just started December, so this is back in October when I found out about the whole Hurricane thing. But that's neither here or there. I don't care about that drama. Like, the way you operate yourself is how you operate yourself, and
Mhm.
hey, you're the one that has to live with it, right? Um, just be a good person. Like you
Yeah.
want to make sales,
Yeah.
be a good person.
Yeah.
Don't screw people.
Well, with
Um,
genetic testing too, like a lot of that's going to go away as we get deeper and deeper into genetic testing, man. Like you get rid of that drama filled, controversy crap because you just have proof. The first question I asked the guys from RGI or whatever when they came to my booth at Tinley was, I need to know if you have proof that Monarch and Ultramail are different. And they hands down, they do. And so if they wanted to publish that stuff, they could, but I don't need them to. All I needed was their word, and I'll take them on their word.
100%. I think that's one of the things too, is like I think every time we make a change in this industry, everyone gets scared. They get nervous because they don't know how the industry is going to react to it, right? But like at the end of the day, like we've been saying, if you just work hard and you do it right, you treat people right, it's not going to freaking matter. Like
Yeah.
if you want to spend your money to make sure that your pos hets that you're creating are actual hets to further your project, hey, great, do it.
Yep.
But like, don't shit on the people that are doing it to get ahead,
Yeah.
and don't say that it's going to ruin the industry because it's really not. Like, it's
Yeah.
get
You
in the
know,
science behind it, man.
right. It's interesting about this industry is that you said, people shit on somebody to try to get ahead. There seems to be more of that in this than any other industry I've had my foot in. Um, Photography has conventions and trade shows just like we do. Big building sales, same thing. Like it seemed when I came, when I really get my foot in the door in this one, man, I've been quite shocked at how quickly people can stab you in the back or take a shit on you, man, to try to get ahead of you, and it's unfortunate, man. It's and you said a minute ago, man, just to be a good person, and that's really what it comes down to, man. I'm an open book. I have people that I've upset in this industry. I've tried to fix it, but those people are, stubborn or this or that. And I think that's another thing, man. I think the absolute key to things in this industry is communication. And so many people will put up a wall very quickly when they don't think they got their way. It's a lot of childish,
100%.
and I hope, I mean, I'm shitting on the industry saying this, I guess, right? But that's my feel is that unfortunately, man, there's not enough communication, and people aren't open minded, to have civil conversations sometimes. So when you hear about these breeding loans and things like that go crazy, man, to me that all that was is they had bad communication.
Well, I'll take it a step further than that. Like, I really don't. Shouldn't be doing this. All right. Sometimes you just have to get the hell over it. Like at the end of the day, we're all adults. Our
Mhm.
motivation, if we're growing it to your level, right? Like you have grown your collection to a point where it has to bring in income so that it can sustain itself. Otherwise, you're losing out, right? And it's not to say that you have to turn a profit, but at the end of the day, it has to at least pay for itself so you're not putting your family in a bad spot. So, if you're going to go and you're going to shit on people and you decide to not then talk to that person and just completely blackball that person, well, look, here's how business works. And you might not like it, but the way business works is you have to collaborate with people in one form or the other. Either I'm collaborating with you to bring this content to you, or I'm collaborating with you to work a project together because we both have pieces of the puzzle,
Mhm.
right? Or I'm collaborating with you to bring something that you want to your door, and you are then returning the favor by putting money in my pocket.
Sure.
One way or another, it's a collaboration. So if you're
Yeah.
going to be blackballing each other, fighting each other all the time, and just not getting over your grudges, if that person has it, maybe they're the only one that has it. And I think Will has said this once from RCR, like at the end of the day, I don't care how I feel about you. If you have what I need, then I'm going to get it from you, right?
Yeah,
Because I
that's what
am
makes
going to
Will.
succeed.
Yeah, that's what makes Will probably a better person than me. There's
Well, I
definitely
mean,
a couple
it's
people on my list that I'd have a hard time buying something from if I needed it. I'm just honest.
and I understand that, bro. Like, I'm not gonna say, hey, if you and me beefed out right now, right, and you had the Monarch that I needed to really set myself apart, and be like, man, fucking Troy.
Yeah, I would like to
Hey,
think that I was
Troy, how
also
much do you
so
want
that.
for that Monarch?
Yeah, I
You
think
know what
even
I mean?
saying that, man, I really think that if I would probably be able to get over myself, right? Like,
Yeah.
I may not like it, but at the end of the day, right? Will's right, and yeah, it shouldn't matter like how you feel about one another when it comes to certain things, right? If you don't need to buy it from that person, then yeah, I get what you mean, man, and it is.
It's
Unfortunately,
not
the
even
industry
just that.
definitely
Like,
carries some
you
drama.
got to think about, so like with you, right? You have your group. So if I effectively get pissed off and I say, "Hey, I'm gonna fucking blackball Tony or Troy," I'm sorry, I just rid of Tony.
You can call me
I'm gonna
Tony.
blackball Troy from everything. Then what's your group gonna do to me?
Right.
I'm effectively cutting off an entire section of the market from all the projects that you do. Not only the projects, but say you guys come up with other things, like you're a distributor for Redline Sciences.
Yeah.
Like I'm cutting off someone that has connections to someone that works very many avenues within this industry, between the
Yeah.
shipping, the products, all that. And you could talk about your distributing and all that, but I'm just saying, like, if you cut someone off for something that petty, like, just get over yourself. You're an
Yeah.
adult. Like, move
Well,
on. You want to do it the old man way? Like, let's do it the old man way. Let's
yeah.
go behind the show.
Yeah. Flagpole,
Get out of the
3 o'clock.
show so you don't get kicked out of the show, but go outside of the show. Hey, I'll tell you what. And in Texas, you can say it's a grudge match legally. Like, I can literally say I'm willingly fighting this person.
Yeah. You've
And
been
as long
down
as
that
you don't
avenue.
say that, the cops have to just sit there and watch it. And you know what? Walk back to your booth afterwards and just get the fuck over it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you like to wrestle guys, in Texas. I try not to do that.
I wasn't trying to, but no one else wanted to step up to the plate. So
Yeah.
someone had to do it. It was for a good cause. It was for USARK. And I'm going to repeat this real quick, if it's okay with you, Troy. Any super chats or anything that's donated tonight, that money will go to USARK. Right now, we're at a $65 total. So thank you guys for donating that much.
Nice.
Let's jump into the other projects. Like, obviously, Monarch, something that we're both very passionate about. What's some other projects that you may not necessarily be in, but have really caught your eye? And
Yeah, man, tough. I'm probably very behind on DG. I hated that it was called what it was. I was very confused in the very first, when people would say, Desert Ghost and versus the old Desert Gene, right? Like, and so I don't know if I just didn't take the time to, research it like I should have. I put my blinders on, so now there's definitely so many things on that project that I definitely fall in love with, man. So I've been trying to invest some stuff that way. I was never a big clown guy for a long time. That's something that over the last few years, man, we've definitely invested a lot in. I was always a pied guy, man. That's really where it comes down to for me, is I absolutely love pieds. At the very first Tinley, I think it was, so 20 some years ago, we were at the very first or second Tinley, and I saw a guy like spend, whatever, $20,000. I don't remember what it was on a single animal. And I remember looking at my wife and being like, we'll never have that. Like, we'll never be able to own one of those. And it's such the prettiest animal, right? And now they're pennies. But obviously there's, pied combos that are, high-end projects and things like that. And so when I got back in with the G-Stripe stuff, man, the very next thing I started to buy was pied stuff. So I have a probably too much. I'm really trying to even out the collection some. I'm very pied heavy. But that's really what's always caught my eye. It's really my favorite thing, and it probably always will be. But as far as new projects and stuff go, I haven't really dove into anything since buying into Monarch. Anna's got a lot of cool stuff, I think, coming from the UK. and I want to be careful here. I think what Anna's doing is absolutely great. I'm a little gun shy, I think, on some of that stuff, and so, Anna does something cool with it, or XYZ does something cool with something. I may have to pay a little more for it, because they unlocked something, but I kind of like it to be a little bit, proven success story. There's, I could have got some pixel stuff from Justin a few years back at a pretty decent price, at the time, and I just was showing Lisa yesterday like how much more they cost currently. And so I mean, there are times I wish I would take a little more of a gamble, right? Like, but I definitely don't have that edge in me, the way that maybe would be beneficial to me. So I haven't really dove into anything. But yeah, there's definitely things out there that have caught my eye.
Well, I mean, even with the projects, man, like while you may let them be worked a little bit before you jump into them, I think there's a lot of things that you do at a level where, like with Anna, like I'm just gonna say it, she's got bigger balls than most men in this industry. Like,
Correct.
She's not afraid to go after what she wants.
Correct.
You have the art of talking to people down, where a lot of us don't have that, and you have the art to kind of, or I'll say the talent, because of your other job with photography, to really look into the colors of a snake, or look at the way patterns are interacting a little bit more. And while it takes you a second longer to get into it, because your curiosity has to be piqued, right? Like you have to see that palette, but once you see it, I think you're really one of the ones that are able to express your palettes.
Yeah. No, I mean, I appreciate that. I think there's definitely something to be said, for people like Anna that, definitely can jump into something and they see it. I don't think Anna, just wakes up one day and says, I'm going to buy this blah, blah, blah for shits and giggles. I think Anna's done her research. I think she knows what she's looking at. And I think, she's invested correctly. I wish I had that. I wish I had that, a little bit more of the willing to take a gamble on something than I do. And because it would definitely pay off, I think, in the end, right? Like you get into a project at the right time, early enough. Like that's the name of this game, is really getting into a project early. I mean, that's obviously where your dollars come from. If you want to talk about the dollar side of things, but if you look at like the overall of it, I really like things that that are pleasing to me eye wise. I look at it and I like it. The dollar side of it is obviously important too, but I wish there was a project I could name. But there's just, at the moment, man, I don't think I could really tie a name to something that I want to buy into. I think there's a lot of stuff that I'm trying to keep an eye on, but nothing jumps off my head at the moment. So,
well, since I can't coax a project out of him, guys, let's talk about how you kind of, I'm just picking on you. Let's talk about how you kind of work a project. Like for those that are getting in and those that haven't necessarily worked a project yet, because we have a good mixture in the audience, right? Those that are accomplished and have done things, and those that only have a few years in, and they're kind of figuring it out, right? So if you were to give someone advice that's starting out and trying to figure out how to work their first real project, what advice would you give them?
Good question. That's actually a really good question. Oh, and I just saw Andrew said sunset. I do have some sunset stuff as well, that's a good one to jump into.
Declothe a little bit. It is way too hot in
here. Man, that question, I feel like I can answer a lot of different ways. I feel like a lot of things I worked wrong. I still think there's some things I worked wrong. So like, I'm going to take the Monarch side of things, right? Like, so when I got my first Monarch male, my idea is I needed to make visual Monarchs as quick as possible, because I wanted to get the dollar end of it to invest into making, then making maybe the hets and things like that, right? And I missed. And what I should have done is just immediately taking that male to, clowns or clown pieds or sunset, and just started making, double hets and triple hets and whatnot. I think it depends. So that's why I say it's tough to answer somewhat, right? Because I think that everybody's financial situation is different, and I think maybe their goals are different. I think on an even playing field, if they're like, I'm going to do whatever Troy tells me to do right now, I would tell you to take the gamble, right? Meaning if you bought a recessive visual male and you have pieds and clowns and sunsets and hypos and all that, make all the double hets you can, make all the triple hets you can, like get as many, codoms and whatever in there as you can, and wait. Like, because I think in the long game, you're going to come out far ahead of many people because so many other people chase just the dollar. There's people like me that I was trying to, play the dollar in order to do what I wanted to do, and I missed. And so really it kind of put me behind. But I think it's project based. I think it's opinion based and goal based. That's a really tough question. I think there's people that I talk to on a daily or here and there that are like, hey, I don't want to be a go-to-show guy, blah, 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 but I want to breed snakes and make a little bit of money. This is what I like. What should I do? And then, if it's codoms, like, yeah, man, stack that stuff. Make visual snakes that you like and find an outlet to sell them, right? Like MORPHMARKET, or find your pet store, or hit a local show or whatever. And there's people like, hey, I want to do this as a full-time job. And I think to really do that, like, you need to set yourself up, and those are bigger gambles, right? You got to set yourself up, and you got to be able to, shelf animals, and you got to be able to keep the best. So many of those things I've learned the tough way. I sold the best thinking that, not that I think line breeding is true, so don't get me wrong here, but like in the beginning, I thought like I would sell the best and I would just keep whatever because the genetics were the same. Just this animal looked better than this animal. That's flip-flop somewhat for me. Like I've tried to keep some animals back, to line breed maybe some things and see what happens. But yeah, man, God, that is really a good question. And I wish I could give like this beautiful answer that is an aha moment for people, but I don't know if I have that.
I mean, there's so many ways to work it, right? Like the way you said it, like it wasn't necessarily that you were chasing the dollar. You were trying to find ways to bring a different view to it, right? And
yeah, like
it's all about what you do. But you're right. Like setting up the double and potentially the triple or quad, obviously in the future it's going to pay off in dividends, right? Like
yeah,
you're
and
patient.
timing comes in, I think, huge. So like, again, if I use the Monarch side of things as just a scenario, I got a male at the right size at the right time with some het females that would allow me to make visuals in order to me to maybe have them for sale the very next season coming. So I imported some females. I bought my male from TJ, and I thought this is gonna work, right? Like this is gonna be fine. And those females just didn't go, So I took a gamble on trying to make the visuals in order to sell them when things were selling really hot for Monarch, and it was a bust for me, and then I invested heavily with Liz. And then I bought my Fire Monarch pied from the UK. And so I had to kind of had to do some of that because I knew where I wanted to be. And so I think there's a lot of ways to get to that point too, right? Like you could start with the cheapest of cheap and go, 66% het to 66% het and fingers crossed, and you hit a visual and then you make some hets and you blah, blah, right? You could take that slow gain. For some people, that's fine. For me, I wanted to have a certain amount of animals very quickly, that were visuals. And so sometimes you have to buy into that then too, right? So your investment is different. But yeah, again, man, and this is something I could just ramble on, but, really, I think out of everything that I said, like, if you want my opinion, the gamble is making double and triple hets on the recessive side of things and getting a bit of an army, of females on your shelf. And here's the thing, I think you don't necessarily need those males, right? I don't care if you wholesale them or you sell them however you want. That's up to you. But if you stockpile those females, like, 2 and 3 years down the road when they're ready to breed, you might be able to afford at that point a male that's, visual and then a double het, or whatever, right? Or maybe it's a triple visual or something. But and then all of a sudden, man, you're on top of the world, like versus, guys like me. So like the DG side of things, like, man, my DG stuff, I just recently hit a pastel DG tri-stripe. And that's a holdback for me, but that's been 3 years in the making for me. Like this is my third clutch from a double het. So it went double het to double het. I hit a pastel DG 66% het tri-stripe. I took that male back to mom. I missed on a visual the second year, and then on the third year I took that same male back, and then I hit a visual, right? And so now I can keep that visual and go back to all the other females that I kept. So like pastels that are 66 or tri-stripes that are 66% hets and things that I have kept. I have like a het DG girl, like I have a DG pied that's 66% het exanthic that I have a project with another buddy, and we have some triple het girls, and but I don't have a large DG thing, and so I'm, I guess my point being is I have to buy in. I'm not at a point where I should have made that stuff years ago and been shelving it, and I didn't, right? So like I'm behind the 8 ball, and I'm having to make up with it by buying it.
So, oh man, I get it. Like, so the way I'm kind of working my projects, right? Like I have a few heavy hitters, right? But for the majority, my stuff is I have very specific codoms that I like, and I like to see them in all recessives. So while I'm working those in, I have a partner that I say, hey, I would like to see this and this together. So I'll create double hets over here, but I'll be working the codoms into each individual, and then we'll put it together for double hets down the road. So it's easier. Create the double head army.
Mm-hmm.
They'll work the double head army, right? And then we interchange animals as we go. And that way we both bring each other up at the same time. So you're working both ends of the spectrum. And I think it's all on how you want to play it. Your room obviously plays a big part in what you can do. I have a very small reptile room. Like I can only work so much within a 10 by 10, you know what I mean? Like I'm working in a prison cell here, but I'm having fun with it. But it all depends on what you want to see and how you want to work it. And like you said, there's like you have your point where you're kind of in the buying phase. I think I'll probably perpetually be in that phase until I move and have like, I don't know, like a just in size facility if I ever make it that far. Like hopefully one day.
That would be nice.
But as long as I get like a 20 by 20, I'll still be happy.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to double this space. I could do a lot more, but it's just it, and that goes back to shitting on people, right? Like I don't know, man. Like you gotta work all angles if you want to be successful in this and how you want to work it. But
your success can come from a lot of different ways. And Ozzy told me one time, and I've heard him say this too, like if you picked a number and said you wanted to make, $300,000, you could do that with 100 animals, or you can do it with 10. It's your investment in the beginning, right? And so you could do a 2.8 collection and have 8 stellar, clutches and make a grip of money, or you may have to, start with 100 animals, right? And work it a little bit slower and work a little bit harder because you're having to raise all those animals and feed them in clutches and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways to get to the same ending, if that's a good way for me to say it. So I think it's what you're depending upon, how hard do you want to work and what you want to invest in the beginning. That's a lot of it. It's definitely not overnight. I mean, I do think there's a fair amount of people that get into this. They see the money, they see how great people are doing at these shows, and snakes are flying out the door, or lizards or whatever. And I think they think, oh, I'm going to get into this and I'm going to make money. Like I didn't see really a return, like a real return. Probably for the first, probably four, might have been my fifth year.
Okay.
I mean, I made probably a little bit of money that helped pay for, beddings and things, things like that, getting new racks, but legitimately putting like money in my pocket, that probably wasn't until like 5 through 7 before that really came in. So yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's funny, like owning your own business, whether that be a photography studio like I'm sitting in, or running a snake facility or whatnot, man. Like, again, that's another misconception, is I think people think you get all this time, man. I legitimately feel like I'm always working.
Absolutely.
You're answering emails at 3 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon. Either way, you're working, right? And so, yeah, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. And me and Andrew just talked on the phone the other night, man, and we said that same thing. Like, people share, you see, 97% of what you see is the rainbows, right? And not enough people share the kicks and the nuts. And I've always tried to be very honest. Whether I'm winning or losing, I try to share both, man, because I definitely don't want to give anybody false hope in what goes on in this industry.
No, 100%. And I think so. One of the things that just kind of popped into my head, we have the opportunity for a different perspective, right? Because you built two companies simultaneously. So how has one kind of played into the other? And with building these, what are things that you were able to take from, like, say, your photography side of things and put it into the snakes, or vice versa, like as far as like a business plan or how you need to
Yeah.
operate things?
Yeah, for one, I'm still learning this, is time management. Time management is for me personally is extremely hard. I Going back to depressions and anxiety and things like that, man. It's very easy for me to give myself an excuse and not work on either. So for me personally, I have to push through that first. The next hurdle for me is time management. And that's become harder because I think the studio is always growing each and every year, which I'm very happy with. And obviously the snake sales and stuff have too, and then the collection is growing. And so trying to divide my time between the two of them, to be honest, I think that probably hurts them both. If I just stopped doing one and focused all my energy on the other, I think that one would be a bigger success story. But I really enjoy both, and so I'm not at a point in my life where I want to try to tackle one or the other. I want to continue trying to do both. I think where they have a lot of the same aspects for me is whether and I'm going to try to throw some numbers or something out here to give some perspective, but like our high school seniors, so we do senior portraits. That's not something that's done throughout the country, but pretty widespread. And so if my average sale is $2,200, I have to give that salesmanship, and like I have to give the and the product and the time and my energy has to equate, right? Like I have to show that customer that they're getting something for that $2,200. There's no difference in the snake side, right? If you get $2,200 for a snake, you had to put time and energy into creating the snake that person saw and saw the value in it, right? And so there's still a salesmanship between the two of them that I think very well merges. I've said this before on a show. There was a guy in my life named Leo Levine, and he owned a car dealership and like a roller skating rink, and he was just the guy. He went to church with my family, and he had a plaque of his own saying that said, "People do business with people they like." And I 100% believe that's true. I think if you give a level of professionalism in either for me, either one of these industries, and you treat people the way they want to be treated, and at the end of the day, man, they're probably going to buy from you. And so that's probably the biggest thing I see between the two. That's a lot of likeness is it comes down to a lot of networking, a lot of salesmanship, and selling yourself. and again, I think there's some people that can just put that face on, and that's fine.
Right.
I would like to think I am who people see me as a show and stuff. I'm probably not on an everyday basis have that same energy level, but I would like to think at the end of the day, man, I'm not any different than if you saw me at a show versus here. And so I see a lot of similarities between those two things for me. Where I
Right.
lack between the two of them is I photograph during the day here, and when I go to photograph my snakes, I don't necessarily put the same effort into it, and that's something I'm trying to change. I could probably photograph my snakes extremely well and be very eye catching. And I think I let myself do a very mediocre this works. And to be honest, maybe the little things that I know in photography that would make those images better, maybe they wouldn't show up as well to you or somebody else versus me because I know what I'm looking for. But I do think that I could do a much better job photography wise on the snake side of things. I think another similarity between the two of them is marketing. John Dagg is an absolute marketing master. I'll give him a ton of credit. He gives me a lot of ideas, and I try to build upon it and roll with it. And the two really fit together as far as photography, what goes on at the studio, and what I can do marketing wise with it, along with the snakes. And so, I think there's very much a lot of things between these two businesses of mine that go hand in hand.
Do you think it's kind of like a double-edged sword though, with
Yeah,
what you were saying earlier?
yeah,
Like I understand you feel like it's somewhat mediocre, but at the same time, with the amount of animals that you have and the posts that you have to put on Morph Market and the time that you spend like setting up and tearing down for a show or even doing the promotion for the shows, because you're one of the ones that I actually see. You put it out, say, "Hey, I'm gonna be at the show," and you put an effort in, and that's something that
yeah.
not everyone does.
You're definitely going to get out of, you're going to get out whatever you put in, right? Like,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, going into a show, man, I always try to make sure I'm doing some story posts. I pay for an Instagram ad, and or Facebook ad. Um, I try to share, my friends' stories that say, "Hey, Troy's gonna," I try to reshare all that stuff. Um, yeah, I mean, definitely. I think the hardest part is a lot of it is just time. It is a lot of time, man, and Morph Market is a lot of time. I love what John's created. I think John really does a good job of going and talking to all the vendors and very open-minded and open-eared to your ideas. And he's changed a lot of things within Morph Market to make it smoother. But it's still a time animal, like to sit down and photograph. For me, I set up in my snake room and sit down and photograph. I think my account lets me have, whatever, 3 images or something. So I try to utilize that. But yeah, I mean, putting in, 30, 40 animals in a night is time consuming. And again, it kind of comes down to that time management, but I like it, right? At the end of the day, I do enjoy this, and you have to take, whether you want to put that in the good or the bad, it's no different than whether I have to clean snake shit or I have to post animals on Morph Market. It's just time. And so I think, the biggest thing is picking a time. That's where I'm at right now. I mean, just give you a little, I'm probably jumping around here, but,
Oh, you're good. You're good.
and I'm going to throw this in there. Like, our son had a seizure while we were in Arlington vending. And so my wife had to jump out of plane, come home. Fast forward, we met with a doctor, thought we had it all figured out. And a couple weeks ago, he had another seizure. And so right now my wife is spending, most of the week living in about 2.5 hours away from me at college with our son because he's on a seizure protocol and can't drive. Right. So like, I'm really learning a lot of time management right now. And I think it's actually somewhat of a blessing. I don't want to make light of my son's situation, but it's teaching me something right now. And now it's going to be, I'm always going to clean on this day, and I'm always going to feed on this day, which always floated within a day or something anyways. But now it's just locking things in. And I think it's really been quite a big help for me, is just knowing that on this day, I'm going to do this, and on that day, I'm going to do that. I'm editing on this day. And, I can take photo gigs on this day. And so I think, as far as giving people advice, man, like if you have a hard time with time management, I think having a true schedule and like legitimately following your schedule will take away, if I fight anxiety, like it'll take away from your anxiety and stuff. So I've learned to manage my time a little bit better just in these last few weeks. And our son has 1 week left of college until he's on a break, and then she'll have to go back with him. And so it's a big learning curve right now for all of us. And but it's if there's a silver lining to what's going on with our son, is that I'm learning to manage my time so that I'm going to have MORPHMARKET dialed in, where maybe every other week I take a couple hours in the schedule and I block it off for MORPHMARKET, and that's what I do during that time. And so yeah, it's been a big learning lesson.
I couldn't imagine that, man. Like, prayers up for your son.
Thank you.
I hope,
Yeah, he's doing
you
okay.
guys
Like,
figure
outside
that
of,
out.
yeah, it's frustrating not having answers when it comes to Michael's deal. And Michael got to come out to California with me and vend with Andrew and Jacob and Antoine and Kendall and Josh, and he really took to those guys. And so has been planning on going to Pomona with me in January, and he probably still will. He won't be able to help me drive, but he's taken a liking to those guys, and those guys have been super encouragement to Lisa and I, and they've checked in on Michael, and that's been a big thing. And that goes back to the people you meet in this, right? Like, it's not just about the snakes and stuff. You really forge friendships, man. And I wanted to share with those guys what was going on, because Michael had taken such a liking to them, and they've been absolutely awesome through these last couple months with this going on. And but yeah, man, it takes, and if I can piggyback on it all, God forbid anybody listening or whatever has to go through a situation where your life gets interrupted that way. In a way, like I said, the silver lining is it's teaching me something, right? Like, and I'm lucky enough that I have my own business that I can really, if I worked an 8 to 5, I mean, this would be very difficult. And so I'm in a good spot that, we can make things work. And so, yeah, it's been interesting, but I absolutely appreciate, the comments. I've seen a few over here. Yeah. And Lisa, I think I saw some things about Lisa too. Like, my wife is an absolute saint. She definitely works full time with me on both sides of things. She runs the rat room for me in the snake side. And then she works here at the studio editing and ordering and things. And so she's my Sherpa. She carries all my shit. So yeah, man, it's definitely a family thing. And Michael is training to be a nurse. He's going to school to be a nurse. And so it's kind of an interesting deal that he's going through this, and it's in his realm of what he's learning, but hopefully he's okay. And seizure stuff is really interesting. If people maybe know, if you're dealing with it yourself or a family member, maybe but I'm definitely learning a lot about that stuff as well. So
I'm glad. Well, I'm not glad that he's going through it, but I'm glad you guys are able to make light and like find the silver lining in it, man. That's
yes, yeah.
A lot of people have a hard time doing that. I think that's a testament to who you are as a person. You've faced a lot of adversity throughout your lifetime.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You found the silver lining in all of it. That's amazing, man.
Yeah, you definitely have to. So I could have very easily said, you know what, I'm going to shut the studio down, or I'm going to get rid of all the snakes. And would that solve my problem? No, right? Like, that's not going to cure Michael. But I think everybody feels that way right off the bat. Like, and I kind of did. I took a step back and thought, oh my God, what do I need to do? And again, luckily having Lisa and friends like Andrew and all these guys that I get to talk to, like, you figure out really quickly, like, hey, I just have to take a step back and get my priorities right, and time management. I'll keep kicking that one. And yeah, you definitely learn quickly, and I'm in a good spot. And yeah, certainly appreciate all the well wishes and stuff. So yeah, thank you guys for that.
Man, so while we have you here, because it is your other passion, man, we're gonna pick your brain on photography. I know some people may have watched like the Brittany Gobble episode on Snakes and the Fat Man to try to learn, and I know we talked about it, and I'm sure she talked about it on MJ's. I didn't see that episode. But like, what's some of the things that you would tell? Because obviously we're not professional photographers, right? We're not sure which isolation or aperture to use or all
Sure.
that good stuff, right? Like, so give it to us nuts and bolts. Like if you're looking to capture, obviously you want to try to capture a still life image for your morph market, but at the end of the day, these are wild animals and they're moving. So
Yes.
what
Yeah.
are some tricks of the trade that you would advise for new people?
Yeah. I think the first thing I would say is it's all about lighting. Like the more, how do I say this? A well lit image, I think marketing wise, will get more views versus a muddy, dark image. So um, I certainly photograph both on white and black, but I probably steer more towards white. And I think if you look at an industry standard, probably most of us do. I also don't think necessarily it's a bad, like the pictures I see on Morph Market where somebody's photographing outside. That might be their, best lit scenario.
Right.
Obviously, as a photographer, I know how to work with flash and constant light and things like that. So I don't necessarily think you have to do that. It just needs to be well lit. So if you want to shoot in like a white, product box, you know, flash is a little bit more difficult to learn, I think, versus like just what you visually see, which is constant light, your ambient light. I would say just make sure you have enough of it, right? So
Right.
if you don't, then that's where you need to add light. So whether you just go out to your Menards or hardware store and buy an LED light and stick it on top of that dome or from the side or whatever you decide to do, it really comes down to just having the right light. Camera phones are phenomenal. I would be willing to, I mean, I shoot Sony as far as a studio product goes. And I shoot a pretty high dollar, high end Sony camera. I would be willing to bet that a Samsung S22 or the new 14 Pro Max or whatever on the Apple side of things would take just as good or not better image than my camera would if you were letting it decide to do it all on its own, right? A
Right.
camera, is you trick it. You're telling it what to do. But these camera phones are phenomenal. They do all have a pro mode that you can go in and do your own aperture and things you were just saying, ISO and settings. I would say just spend an hour on YouTube and you'd probably get a good idea of what that stuff means and how to maybe work it. My biggest piece of advice is just have it be lit well, get enough light on your image. And I think again, shooting onto white, black absorbs light, right? So if you shoot into like a black piece of cloth or whatever, it needs more light because black absorbs it, where white is more reflective, right? So you can get away with less light. But I would say good, clean images that are well lit are going to, as far as any product goes, are always going to get better attention. I would be willing to say if I pulled up Morph Market right now and picked whatever, there's probably some image on there that's really hard to see, and it's because the person thought like, oh, it looks really cool on this black cloth, but it doesn't. So
I'm one of those, man. You got to call me.
Damn it, you. Yeah.
I love the black background.
Get rid of the black. I mean, I do it too, man. Like, so like I said, I certainly don't want to say that I don't. But I would be willing to say I try to shoot on white more than anything.
So we're gonna come in here. Let me share
we could do like a photo night, man. I could probably set this all up and we could run through shooting some stuff or something.
I'm gonna get you right now. We're gonna critique Troy's own photos.
Oh, this is where I'm telling you, man. This is where I'm lacking. But all right. Oh my God, this is
so I see a lot of white. I'm not going to critique it because I'm not the photographer, but I do see some edging where
Troy gets lazy and doesn't crop something, and I'm looking at this, man, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is so horrible.
I mean, it's it's on the preference of the shooter too. But that's where I was saying it's a double-edged sword for you,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yes,
like
absolutely.
you create so many animals at this point where there's a point where if you took the time into every photo that you do for like someone's graduation or wedding photos or family photos for their Christmas card, for heaven's sake, right? Like if I would say we probably wouldn't be seeing animals on your morph market, but at the same time, you probably wouldn't have animals on your morph market because of the pure time that it would take to do that with each.
Yeah. I mean, like where you're at right now is like a perfect example, man. Like if this whole page was just somewhat of a well lit white background, it would look way better. But you can see, like, I shot one on RePTile because I was being lazy that day, and I put one in my hand, and there's like shit on the ground. I don't even know what's on the ground in that image. It's probably like a bucket or something stupid. But that's, and I think if you're being honest, if I looked at this person, I'm probably not gonna be like, oh, I'm not gonna buy from them because they got lazy on a couple images. But it certainly tells me something, right? Like, why did this person not photograph these ones? Like, what was going on that day, right? So I mean, that's the thing. I think if you want to make it look good, like, have everything kind of match, right? Like everything kind of goes together. So this whole page showed up as all white. It's just going to look more professional.
Right.
And I
And
saw some
that
comments
falls
like,
within your branding and marketing too,
it
is
absolutely
what we were
does.
talking about.
Yeah. And I saw some people talking about like natural light and things like that. Like, absolutely. You know, Mike Porter, I think if you take a look at most of his stuff on his like Instagram page, it's very well lit. And it's natural light. I mean, I see, you know, some great thing. I think that there's a lot of people that do just photograph right in their hand, and that's fine. I think a lot of times that looks great if they're doing it right. So yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely ways to do it. You know, and I'm be more than happy to help people as much as I can. And so, oh, we're watching snakes climb up the wall.
What the heck?
Yeah, so like if you check out like Porter stuff, man, like that natural light right there, like that's beautiful. It's well lit. He's done it right. It's not like a harsh sunlight coming directly on the animal. It's done within, you know, like the shadow where the natural light is casting in through the shadow. And so you know, Mike would be a great example of a well natural lit, you know, snake images. And I don't know if Mike uses this on his MORPHMARKET page. I've never looked, but I've always noticed how well he's done on his Instagram page. That he's done a great job, natural light wise, with his animals.
So what would you say for the average person then? Like, just take your phone, or like, would you say, hey, just if you want to use this expensive piece of equipment, because obviously a lot of us have aspirations of grandeur, right? I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of them. I saw freaking Barcheck when I first came into it, and I was like, man, I could totally do vlogs all day. And then I hung out with Cusco all the time, and I was like, it can't be that hard to stay on this schedule. It's freaking hard.
It's hard, man. Vlogging and editing video and all that, man, is absolutely a lot of time.
Yeah. But so if you were to say, take the perspective of someone with their phone versus someone that wants to drop down on that professional piece of equipment, what's going to be kind of the time difference between those two, right? Like, how much time with a phone versus how much time with a camera would you say to really figure out how to pull out the best of an animal?
Yeah, I think the difference between the two is the learning curve. Your camera phone set on just the mode it's on right out of the box is going to take, like I said, this 14 Pro Max or S22s. You've seen people take pictures of the moon with the S22, man. It's phenomenal, you know, and you know, out of the box, man, it's really set up pretty well. The difference is you can trick a true camera, into doing things that your phone can't do. That's really the biggest difference. And it's probably more on like the portrait side of things, you know, people and things like that. I think product photography, that's really what we're doing. You know, when you're shooting a photograph of a snake, it's product photography. I'd be willing to bet, man, there's not a huge difference in what we're doing between the two. And so I would almost, and you would probably never hear me say this in any other photography question, but I would probably tell you that if you have a decent phone, and when I say that, I should say when you have their top of the line, because that's really where their camera functions come in. If you get like an S22 basic, whatever it is, versus their Pro, that camera is different. And same with like the 14 and the 14 Pro Max or whatever.
Right.
Those cameras really do a great job. And I won't throw shit on those phones at that point, because they do a great job. They do have a manual mode, so I think, again, if you went in and wanted to learn some of that and then decide if you wanted to go into a camera, that might be a good idea, but you're not going to get.
Remember to change your isolation.
Yeah, you're not going to get.
Oh man,
you're not going to get the same thing out of them right out of the box, man. A camera is definitely about the person behind it versus a phone. It's very user friendly.
So not this past Arlington, but the one before, I was finally learning about isolation and how like the different metrics work, right? And I didn't realize this. So like I played with it in the lobby and I got it to where it was taking immaculate freaking video in the lobby. Well, once you walk in, it's complete different lighting.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it. And I'm not going to blame my wife. My wife was holding the camera for me, but I should have looked, right? Because I knew I switched it. But it's not something I thought about. I was in manual mode and I was like, I want to try this out. I came home and everything was yellow. Like you couldn't make out the color of the snakes. You couldn't make out the color of the shirt I was wearing.
Yeah.
It was horrible. I was so mad. I threw an entire weekend's footage away. I didn't touch it.
Man. Yeah.
It's funny, man. Like the small intricacies of something like that and what it does, not only for your sales, but just like how you do everything, because content creation has become a big part of what I do now. So learning how to properly use the camera, or even freaking my cell phone when I don't feel like carrying my camera, because I'm not gonna lie, I got 3 kids, man. Like there's a lot of times where I'm just like, you know what? It's easier to just be lazy right now.
Yeah. And I'll throw this tidbit out too, man. Like, so for me personally, I don't like to watch YouTube videos that are not lit right, like they're dark, right? Because it's just not pleasing to me. And 2, the sound. And you can pick up, lav Bluetooth mics for pennies on Amazon, man, that connect to your phone or to your camera. So I mean, if there's somebody out there that's wanting to do these YouTube videos and they want to go to shows and they want to interview breeders and things like that, take a couple minutes, man, and go buy yourself a lav mic, or something. Like, go do something. Buy a little ring light that goes around your camera that you could adjust just to give you a little extra light. Buy a $50 mic, Bluetooth mic or whatever, and you'll be worlds ahead of the next guy that walks by me with his phone and says, "Oh, can I interview you?" And I know it's going to sound like shit. So
right.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I feel that, brother. Let's talk about going back to your photography. Like we compared it, how you built them up, man. We've kind of talked about some of the secrets that you would give. What's it like? Because a lot of us have a day job and then a snake job, right?
Yeah.
But we don't have 2 jobs that 100% rely on who we are and what we're doing. Like most people's day job, it's going to be there one way or another. You know what I mean? But you literally are juggling 2 completely different lives. What's, besides just the time management, what's some of the things that you've really had to take into consideration and into the time that you've put into each job?
Yeah, man, good question. Yeah, it's tough. Like, I think I said earlier that, it would be, I think one would, if I would put all my energy into one or the other, right, I think that one would be more successful. And so I think the problem right now is, maybe not the problem, but just me trying to figure out how to make them both successful without hanging up one or the other, right? And so and I know we talked about time management, and I think it all kind of falls into that. But I think really setting up yourself you should try to set yourself up not to fail, right? If you have
Right.
two things that you're doing, whether it's a day job and then the snake side of things, like I think you need to find that happy medium where you can get off your day job and still have the energy and time and the want to clean snakes or take pictures of snakes or whatever. Because you're basically, right, you're getting off a 9 to 5 and you still have another 9 to 5 to go home to. I mean, obviously some people's collections are small where that's probably not the thing, but I'm guessing a lot of the people listening tonight are at a point where really when they come home to this, if they have a day job or they own a couple businesses or whatever, that's another full-time job. And that's the thing, like if I wanted to put 40 hours into this, I'm putting 40 hours into that, and so could I go out and do better in life doing 80 hours of work, doing something else? I don't know, maybe. But I enjoy these two things. And so
Right.
I think you just really have to understand that it's a time commitment. That's what I've had to understand is that, and I've balanced it differently, man. Like I got up today at 1 o'clock. Like I was tired. And so I slept till 1. But then I had to bust my ass this afternoon. Like I had stuff to shoot this afternoon. And then I had this going on, and I want to make sure I had time to do some snake stuff, and I needed to email some MORPHMARKET stuff back. So really, man, again, I think it falls a lot around like just making sure you have the time, the energy, the commitment, and understanding these are live animals. So I mean, I can't just shrug them off like I can the studio, right? The studio is not gonna the studio is going to fail just in the fact that I maybe not be bringing in new clients and things like that, or I'm upsetting clients because I didn't get their work done in time. But they're not going to die, right? Like
Right.
You have living animals in this deal, and so they need your attention, man. They rely on you, and so yeah, man, you definitely have to make sure you have the time and the want to do both if you're doing two things.
I like that. Is it so? It's very much family on both ends, and I'm not trying to critique the way you do your business. It's just me trying to understand the thought process, right? Because it's you and the wife on both
Yep.
sides of it. Has the talk come up of, hey, maybe we should bring outside help, or if
Yeah.
we do that, what's that going to look like for
Yep.
us?
Yeah, man. So again, man, so at the studio, there's a handful of stuff I don't do, and neither does Lisa. We send in a certain amount of work to either be edited or some type of edit done for us. So I'm basically paying a service to give me my time back, right?
Right.
Same with the snake side of things. Like we haven't figured out, do we pay somebody to come in and do the rats so that Lisa can have that time back to maybe help me more in the studio or the snake side of things? Do I hire a kid to come in and clean the snakes? The hard part about that, again, I'm going to touch on them being right. They're animals. They need our care. I think for me, it's just I can't give that care up at the moment. So whether I want to clean them or not, or if I want to feed them or not, I know that I have to. And so I want to put this in the right words. I think that, photography wise or snake wise, if there's something about a job you don't enjoy that you have control over, I would pay somebody to do that part. You're going to get time back, and you're going to get a better overall flow of things. So I don't like to cut images out for sports images. So basically, where you see like a picture of, Michael Jordan with the Coke bottle behind him or something, right? They had to cut him out of that photograph in order to place him over the top of that, right? I'm
Right.
probably sounds stupid right now. But I hate doing it. So I pay a service to do that. The snake side of things, the thing I probably hate the most is probably updating MORPHMARKET. I just don't want to do it a lot of times. And so could I pay somebody to come in, photograph them, update MORPHMARKET? Yeah, I could probably train a kid to do it. And that would be maybe the first thing I would be willing to let go of that control of. So, but I do think, man, no matter what, if you have any type of business that you own and run yourself where you're in control, if there's a part of that business that you do not enjoy doing, you should find and pay somebody that does, because I guarantee you're hurting yourself by trying to do something you don't like to do.
Do you think it's more of a fear to take that step,
There
or
is. There's a large
what do
fear.
you think the
Yeah.
blockage is? Because that's kind of what makes or breaks a lot of small businesses is they try to hold on so much to the control that
Yeah,
they're
I
not
think for
willing to
the
take
snake
that.
side of it, man, the fear for me is not having with my animals. Uh, oh, I'm sorry, we flipped around, and I was like, oh,
I
what
don't know
happened?
what just happened. My
Yeah, no, we're fine.
thing just
I think letting go of that control where I'm touching the animals every day. I know if they're eating, if they're ill, if they're breeding, if they're, I have that whole 100% connection with them, right?
right.
If I pay somebody to take over like the cleaning aspect of it, then that's one part where I'm not seeing my snakes every day. And I think I'd be fearful of what I'm missing. So I think, in some ways you need to find where you could get time back. So like me, maybe paying somebody to do MORPHMARKET or something. I would have a really hard time handing over the keys to, just the animals themselves. Same with the rat room. Like Lisa has a system. We know what it puts out in input. We know, if it's up or down. If I pay some kid to do it and that week they don't really give a shit, does that show in my production? And then what do I do? And so I think it's tougher to hand over something that involves direct connectivity with the animal itself. I think for me it would be the marketing side of things, where maybe I could pay somebody to help me out with that, but it'd be really tough because I would be fearful, like you mentioned. I would be very fearful of not having that connectivity with the animals.
100%. I feel that, and it's something that me and me and my wife fought on for. Well, not like fought, but you know what I mean. We argued about a lot because she's very much a. This is obviously we do everything out of our house, right? So this is our home. This is our safe haven. Things like that. So bringing new people in that she doesn't necessarily know the best and having them be around my children and things like that, like it's scary in multiple aspects. So what I found myself to do is we have that breeder group, right? And I found one of the guys that has a lot more knowledge on rats than I do.
All right.
And I was like, all right, well, you're spending X amount of time driving to another city just to get your rodents because they don't have the supply that you need or stuff like that here, or you're not
Sure.
able to produce it yourself at this time. Well, I have a whole garage full of rodents, so let's collaborate what we're doing. And Mike from 915 Morphs has been extremely awesome. He's taken my production for rodents to another freaking level. I have a lot of admiration for the guy, but I'll admit it was very scary to let go of even one aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
It had always been me and my business partner doing rodents, and we'll rush through, and then I maintain the rodents throughout the week. Well, now Mike takes care of the rodents throughout the week, where I have time to focus on my business degree, and I have time to put more details into the snakes, or I have time to actually spend time with my family because
Yeah.
I was trying to do so much I didn't get to.
Mhm.
But it's very much so a very scary proposition. And then people are very it's very easy to slip into the okay, well, this wasn't done right, so I'm gonna blame you because you're the new person.
Mhm.
Where it was like, okay, well, because and I'll admit I did that one time with him, and I was like, hey man, I don't think this is like the way you're doing this, because we have our systems like your wife has in the rats. I already had a system, and he wanted to change things 100% from the way I did it, and I wasn't comfortable with it. Well, once I learned the system and realized, hey, this is actually working better, it's creating
Right.
better production. Sometimes you got to give up a little bit of control, and it's still here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would definitely believe in that in a lot of different industries, whether it's ours or whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, I hope that someday that our setup is different, that maybe I could employ somebody where, um, I don't know if I would necessarily take myself out of the equation.
Right.
I don't know how to really say it. Like, I would still have a lot of hands on, I think, but it would be nice to have a helping hand. Um, and maybe they could do multiple jobs, right? One day I'm having them do morph market, one day maybe I have them clean, but I would obviously come home and I would never be the fact where I would just, here you go. And at the end of the day, do I have eggs and babies, right? Like I would
Right.
still have to like double check their work. I don't think I would feel comfortable.
No,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
100% get, like, I'm still
Yeah.
out there working with them, but I've
Right.
switched
Yeah.
over
But
to that.
yeah, it's
But
nice.
when it's time to step away, I'm like, "Hey,
Yeah.
y'all are doing
Yeah.
great. Keep it up. I'll be back in a little bit."
Yeah. It's nice when somebody's, yours is a success story, right? You're getting better production and it works out, that's a thing. And so, yeah, I certainly hope someday I get to that point. I guess luckily right now I don't have to be, and
Right.
but I would think that'll be down the road. Lisa and I hate the winter, and so I've been trying to toy with like how could me and her spend a couple months like in the south, but yet have the right person like check on the snakes. But then I would be gone for that amount of time, and I don't know if I would really be able to relax and enjoy myself because I'm a very big, I worry about a lot of things. My anxiety is pretty bad, and so I don't know if I would really handle that or not. But it's to me, man, it's when that life change comes or that bridge comes, I'll cross it then. But right now, I'm not looking to really do much like that. So yeah,
Sorry, kiddos.
you're talking to your kiddos. I love it.
Yeah. Um, he's ready for daddy time.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
getting set up. So we'll kind of wrap it up. I was gonna jump into like thoughts of marketing and stuff, but I think we've kind of covered it throughout the entire
We've
thing.
talked
So
about a
that,
lot of stuff tonight.
yeah,
Yeah.
man. So the thing I would really like to wrap this up with is like obviously if you have a passion for this, you want to push it. Um, what's the one thing that you would like to see really pushed in the industry that you haven't quite seen or you think we could do better at, because we should always strive to do better?
Communication, respect, and open mindedness.
I freaking love it, brother. Obviously we've been talking a lot. Anyone that's in the chat or anyone that watches this after the show, if they're looking for a snake, if they're looking for advice, if they're looking for just a way to talk to you and thank you for what you've done and what you've put out as far as your testimony with your addictions and stuff tonight, how do we get a hold of you to talk to you?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's easy enough to get me through, Instagram, pretty much wherever you find, my stuff, whether it be Facebook or Instagram. You probably can find my phone number as well. I'm not too hard to track down. Whether it's my private, whatever, my public Troy Schroeder Facebook page, or I don't do a lot on my Best Dressed Balls Facebook page, but you certainly could get me there. Instagram has all my info, man, and absolutely, whether it's life advice or help or somebody to listen, or it's snake talk, man, I'm an open book, and I always try to get to people right away. Obviously, I have my life stuff going on as well, and so if I don't get back to you within minutes, I'll certainly try to get back to you that day. And I enjoy talking to people, so I certainly enjoyed this tonight, man. I really thank you for
Absolutely.
what you do, you and MJ and all these guys that do these and take the time to do these, man. I certainly appreciate the time you guys put into it.
I appreciate that, man. It's been a lot of trials, tribulations, and learning, and
Hmm.
I really enjoy it.
Good.
It's this is one of my many aspects. So I'm gonna, if you're good with it, I'm gonna pop you out real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up, and then we can say our adieus, I
Awesome.
guess.
Yes, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all give a hand to Troy. He put out a lot of freaking information tonight. So we appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, man.
Y'all, that was an episode. Like if I have to say one of my best episodes, I'm gonna say it because I think that kind of held what I've always wanted this show to be, and that's not only the snake aspect of it. I think it's very important that we talk the business, we talk the snakes, and but more so that we talk the breeders and the people within this industry, because relationships are super powerful and they're very important. Everything that we do revolves around the people in this industry. So I love that Troy was able to open up so much and just freaking killed it, man. Like, so much knowledge, just pure passion. He opened his heart out tonight. I can't thank him enough for that. Next week, we got another freaking amazing episode. I'm bringing Josh from South Bay Reptiles on, and there's dude works in a multitude of species. Like, if you're ready to branch out outside of just ball pythons, which I think we all should do, if the love for reptiles is there, have some passion projects, do some of this, some of that. He's going to have some information for us. I hope y'all tune in for that one. I hope you enjoyed tonight. Share this video, get Troy some love. Make sure you reach out, let him know you watched him tonight. Thank you all so much. Enjoy your weekend. Y'all stay blessed.